Hello, everybody. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Today, I welcome you to Morning Mindset Cafe, where we read a few pages of Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. Today, the reading is going to be on pages 165 to 168. Then I'll open the room up and we can discuss what was read. Let's get started. Symptoms of lack of persistence. Here you will find the real enemies which stand between you and noteworthy achievement. Here you will find not only the symptoms indicating weakness of persistence, but also the deeply seated subconscious causes of this weakness. Study the list carefully. Face yourself squarely if you really wish to know who you are and what you are capable of doing. These are the weaknesses which must be mastered by all who accumulate riches. 1. Failure to recognize and to clearly define exactly what one wants. 2. Procrastination with or without cause, usually backed up with a formidable array of alibis and excuses. 3. Lack of interest in acquiring specialized knowledge. 4. Indecision. The habit of passing the buck on all occasions instead of facing issues squarely, also backed by alibis. 5. The habit of relying upon alibis instead of creating definite plans for the solution of problems. 6. Self-satisfaction. There is but little remedy for this affliction and no hope for those who suffer from it. 7. Indifference, usually reflected in one's readiness to compromise on all occasions, rather than meet opposition and fight it. 8. The habit of blaming others for one's mistakes and accepting unfavorable circumstances as being unavoidable. 9. Weakness of desire, due to neglect in the choice of motives that impel action. 10. Willingness, even eagerness, to quit at the first sign of defeat, based upon one or more of the 6 basic fears. 11. Lack of organized plans, placed in writing where they may be analyzed. 12. The habit of neglecting to move on ideas or to grasp opportunity when it presents itself. 13. Wishing instead of willing. 14. The habit of compromising with poverty instead of aiming at riches, general absence of ambition to be, to do, and to own. 15. Searching for all the shortcuts to riches, trying to get without giving a fair equivalent, usually reflected in the habit of gambling, endeavoring to drive sharp bargains. 16. Fear of criticism, failure to create plans and to put them into action because of what other people think, do, or say. This enemy belongs at the head of the list because it generally exists in one's subconscious mind where its presence is not recognized. See the 6 basic fears in a later chapter. Let us examine some of the symptoms of the fear of criticism. The majority of people permit relatives, friends, and the public at large to so influence them they cannot live their own lives because they fear criticism. Huge numbers of people make mistakes in marriage, stand by the bargain, and go through life miserable and unhappy because they fear criticism which may follow if they correct the mistake. Anyone who has submitted to this form of fear knows the irreparable damage it does by destroying ambition, self-reliance, and the desire to achieve. Millions of people neglect to acquire belated educations after having left school because they fear criticism. Countless numbers of men and women, both young and old, permit relatives to wreck their lives in the name of duty because they fear criticism. Duty does not require any person to submit to the destruction of his personal ambitions and the right to live his own life in his own way. People refuse to take chances in business because they fear the criticism which may follow if they fail. The fear of criticism in such cases is stronger than the desire for success. Too many people refuse to set high goals for themselves or even neglect selecting a career because they fear the criticism of relatives and friends who may say, "Don't aim so high, people will think you're crazy." When Andrew Carnegie suggested that I devote 20 years to the organization of a philosophy of individual achievement, my first impulse of thought was fear of what people might say. The suggestion set up a goal for me, far out of proportion to any I had ever conceived. As quick as a flash, my mind began to create alibis and excuses, all of them traceable to the inherent fear of criticism. Something inside of me said, you can't do it. The job is too big and requires too much time. What will your relatives think of you? How will you earn a living? No one has ever organized a philosophy of success. What right have you to believe you can do it? Who are you anyway to aim so high? Remember your humble birth. What do you know about philosophy? People will think you're crazy, and they did. Why hasn't some other person done this before now? These and many other questions flashed into my mind and demanded attention. It seemed as if the whole world had suddenly turned its attention to me with the purpose of ridiculing me into giving up all desire to carry out Mr. Carnegie's suggestion. I had a fine opportunity then and there to kill off ambition before it gained control of me. Later in life, after having analyzed thousands of people, I discovered that the most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans of immediate action. The time to nurse an idea is at the time of its birth. Every minute it lives gives it a better chance of surviving. The fear of criticism is at the bottom of the destruction of most ideas which never reach the planning and action stage. Many people believe that material success is the result of favorable breaks. There is an element of ground for the belief, but those depending entirely upon luck are nearly always disappointed because they overlook another important factor which must be present before one can be sure of success. It is the knowledge with which favorable breaks can be made to order. During the Depression, W.C. Fields, the comedian, lost all his money, found himself without income, without a job, and his means of earning a living. Vaudeville no longer existed. Moreover, he was past 60 when many men considered themselves old. He was so eager to stage a comeback that he offered to work without pay in a new field, movies. In addition to his other troubles, he fell and injured his neck. To many, that would have been the place to give up and quit. But Fields was persistent. He knew that if he carried on, he would get the breaks sooner or later, and he did get them, but not by chance. Marie Dressler found herself down and out with her money gone, with no job, when she was about 60. She too went after the breaks and got them. Her persistence brought an astounding triumph late in life, long beyond the age when most men and women are done with ambition to achieve. Eddie Cantor lost his money in the 1929 stock crash, but he still had his persistence and his courage. With these, plus 2 prominent eyes, he exploited himself back into an income of $10,000 a week. Barely, if one has persistence, one can get along very well without many other qualities. The only break anyone can afford to rely upon is a self-made break. These come through the application of persistence. The starting point is definiteness of purpose. Examine the first 100 people you meet. Ask them what they want most in life, and 98 of them will not be able to tell you. If you press them for an answer, some will say security. Many will say money. A few will say happiness. Others will say fame and power. And still others will say social recognition, ease in living, ability to sing, dance, or write. But none of them will be able to define these terms or give the slightest indication of a plan by which they hope to attain these vaguely expressed wishes. Riches do not respond to wishes. They respond only to definite plans, backed by definite desires through constant persistence. And that is where I am going to stop. Oh, good morning, everybody. Good morning, Lloyd, Sean, Antonia, Rocco Steady, I believe is how I pronounce that. Welcome. How's that for a reading? Nothing can happen without persistence and plans. I liked how fear of criticism is clearly outlined here, and that was one of the few things that prevented me from succeeding and making the money that I wanted to make. Rocksteady, hello, good morning. No, I'm not. But the room is open for anybody who wants to discuss what was read. The discussion is about symptoms of lack of persistence. You don't know what you want. You put it off with procrastination and support it with alibis or excuses. Indecision. Habit of relying on those excuses instead of making a plan to get around them. Self-satisfaction. I'm not sure what that one means. I'm not sure what that one means. That's fear and a habit of fear. Lack of persistence or the criticism. Good morning, Cindy. If you really wish to know who you are and what you're capable of doing, it's time to take a square look at yourself, right? Yes, all of that. The biggest fear is the fear of regret. Well, that's interesting. Okay, that's an interesting point. Welcome, Omar. Good morning.
Hey, happy new day. I'm not good at texting. I'm not good at being in the bullpen over there, so I got to get in and ask these questions.
Well, that's why we open the room. I want you to share what you think about the reading.
Yeah, and well, first of all, I got my list, and those were a lot of good things, that you said as far as, what was it, 13 of them? Such as procrastination. Now, well, my point is writing it down. I heard that again. It keeps coming back. There's no way for me to get out of it. I don't have a problem writing stuff down, like my next tree job or whatever. And, so I'm really going to there's no way around that. I'm going to have to do it. I'm doing it. I'm working on it. I have that. I have my book. So I'm writing more things down, and things are really working fantastic for me. Everything I'm writing down, I'm getting, man. It's happening.
I'd love to hear that.
Yeah.
Now that's different than when you first joined me. What was it last month? It's been a month of Mondays, if you will, when you came on here and you knew what you wanted, but you were still, it's still a little muzzy, I guess. That's wonderful to hear. Good.
You've got clearly now, that's for sure.
That's fantastic.
Everything that I wanted just showing up is just incredible. It's credible, meaning that's what I expected. I believed that it would work. And I really think I should get the book in an audio form or something, because I really thought I read the book a couple times before I went back 40 years ago, but now that you're bringing it back to life. And you're making it more practical for me, and it's so much more comprehensible. I understand it much better. I just didn't know the power of it. It sounds totally different. Like, I don't remember reading that, but all the answers appear to be there. And, and especially like with that I know now and the experience I've had. So, yeah, that's it. So I'm doing great. I told you about my new love life, it's just, she just showed up. And that's what make me sure. That's like the evidence. I'm like, God, what kind of joke is this? This is what I dreamed about 40 years ago. Why did she just come? And that's relevant to like the woman who's 60 years old that you told me all her stuff came, like that. That's what I'm expecting, man. It's just coming like that quick. And it just seemed like any day now, despite the fact that I lost everything, with that, other stuff, recently. Yep. But it led me to where I'm at. So it shows that there's no, that these mistakes are only lessons for us.
That's it. What I loved what you said was that you wrote it down, right? You wrote it down. So you have a clear, definite vision of what you're working towards. And I'm thinking you wrote down your plan as it came to you on how you were going to get that vision, right?
Right.
Outstanding. And then when adversity hit, when we get the financial hits, when we get the surprises that life likes to throw in front of us, which wasn't a part of our plan. That's what I'm calling a surprise, right? I didn't write that down.
Where'd that come from?
I say stuff like this. Like, I get with my husband and I say, that wasn't on the plan. That was not, I did not write that down. I'm not seeing that anywhere.
Right.
But because we have those things and the persistence, we're just going to keep going. Don't stop. I'm so happy for you, Omar. That's pretty darn terrific. Love it. Hey,
morning,
Sean.
Omar. Morning, Charlene. And I would definitely say, Omar, if this is hitting you this way now because Charlene's reading it every day, definitely get the audiobook. And I would say in the future, any books that you go to, get him an audiobook, because what I'm hearing from you is that's how you learn best. You are an auditory learner. So reading it yourself, you're not absorbing it the same as you will when you hear it.
Exactly.
Please do it and make notes and then share your notes with me.
Right, and rewind and rewind and rewind. You know, like I can go over this over and over and over. Hey, what's up? Good morning.
Well, you're awesome, Omar. I'm so glad it's happening for you. Rocco Steady, do you have a name that I can call you?
Rocco. Just call me
Rocco.
Rocco.
Yeah.
Rocco.
Just so you know, I'm always cautious about somebody who is eager to join without having participated in any way in the side, because I don't want the conversation derailed. That's all. I'm protective of the group.
And because we've had some trolls come through.
Yeah, but that's just so he understands. I don't want it derailed. So welcome aboard, Rocco.
Hi, good morning, Charlene, Omar, Sean. How y'all doing?
Great.
Hope today's the best day of your life. Listen, Think and Grow Rich is like my favorite book. I've read it 47 times. Yeah. And one thing that I have a suggestion in order for you to digest it in a much more, what works for me is writing, taking notes and reading it, and listening to it. You have to engage all your senses. So while you're reading it, eat something that you love, and whenever your pleasure senses trigger, what happens is you attract what feels good to you, right? So whatever you're reading, eat something you love, and then light a candle that might smell good, and listen to good music before and afterwards, and dance. And feel
so make it a full
morning,
experience.
You do listen. Yeah, make it a full experience. And not only that, but teach it to somebody. That's what I really admire about you, Charlene, is that you're taking the time out to share your light through your experience, something that you love. Because what happens when you teach it to somebody, like Omar could go throughout his day-to-day and teach it to somebody, maybe call a friend, or maybe hop on a blab himself, or maybe like teach some random stranger at Starbucks. So you, Sean, you might wake up and have a cigarette break with somebody and be like, you know what I learned today, and then you share it. What happens is when you teach it to somebody, you actually trick your mind to believing that you already know it, and it implements further. So much love to
Thank you, Rocco. Excellent points.
Yeah.
Excellent addition to the conversation.
I heard that another way. It says that what we teach, we learn.
Yeah.
Always be willing to share what you know.
That's powerful.
Right.
It's powerful when you teach it.
Right. See, a lot of times we get stuck in the feeling of lack, whether it's money, love, knowledge, or resources. I know I struggled with that for years. I was like, I'm going to hold everything. I'm going to protect it. I'm not going to give it to anybody. And that was the feelings of lack because of my conditioning and the way that I was raised by my parents. They were like, save. But the moment that I realized that you let go of your hand, you drop. It's like sand. It's like, okay, so sand right here. Sand. You drop the sand. You leave room for God to give you some more. You know what I mean? Like if you're willing to trust God to let go, you can get more. And when you teach, it's like I used to be afraid to teach people my tactics. I was like, oh man, I don't know if I want to share my tactics. But then I started teaching my tactics, and then what happens is I go back to, it's like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan's going to teach you how to dunk, but he's going to go back to the court and learn something new, so you will never pass him up.
The motivation to keep persisting forward, right?
Yeah. And I have a little clarity around that one you were stuck on, Charlene.
I'd like to hear some thoughts on that. I am a bit stuck.
And what my initial take on that is being satisfied with where we're at, and it's kind of a razor's edge, because if we hold Christian beliefs, the Bible says to be content in our things, but that can trip us up because we're self-satisfied. I don't want to say content, but content is good, but like Rocco was just saying, we share it because we know more. We don't have to worry about holding fast to it because we can let it go, and there's more coming. The more we give away, the more that comes in. But that being satisfied with my lot in life,
settling,
basically. doesn't, basically settling.
And my take,
not aspiring to
was,
more.
What little bit there is of it, my response to it was that it was more like self-satisfaction in terms of I have a big enough ego that I don't need to learn anymore. That I don't. It's like a little different take on what you're saying. Instead of just settling, it is, what more can I do? I am who I am, and I'm pretty dang awesome according to that. And it's yeah.
Why strive for higher?
So that part of what was coming through to me. Interesting view, Sean. That helps.
And that really fits with what Rocco was sharing about. I'll share my tips and I'll share my knowledge with somebody else, but at the same time, I'm going to go out and get new knowledge.
Or go and practice.
So that I'm always growing. I'm always going
I'll share
forward.
with you what I know, and then I'm going to go out and I'm going to keep practicing, so I'm always ahead of you. So when I share with you, I'll pull you along, as Sean likes to say, somebody ahead that I can pull you along. Right? But I have you behind me pushing me because I don't want you to surpass me. Yeah, I could. The competitive person in me says I'm all for that. I have no problem with that. Good stuff.
What do you think, Omar?
What I think, well, in that consciousness, yesterday I gave away Bitcoins. And nice. I'm like, this is what I'm going to start doing. I'm going to tip Sean some Bitcoins. I'm going to tip Charlene I'm going to tip you some Bitcoins. And then that way you guys.
I'm going to have to get an account. I'll get with Eric on how I can set all that up. And then, Omar, I'll take your Bitcoins, buddy.
Okay. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate you guys.
And pass them on. Pass them on. I'll be happy to pass them on because anything that's given freely like that, it's a pay it forward kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, my tree phone is starting to blow up again. Let me stay on track. Love you guys. Y'all take care, and I'll be listening in.
Thanks for joining us, Omar.
Love and success, Omar.
Omar, be blessed.
So we have an empty seat. Somebody wants to jump in and start talking about the symptoms of lack of persistence. Having some difficulty.
I have a sideline here. Where's Rocco at?
I'm right here.
Where's there?
Rocco, you're like I am. Well, I'm right here. What? I love it. Love it. And what beach are you on, Rocco?
St. Petersburg.
Okay, down in Florida. Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah.
And, now, cool. Sean, so here's the fun part. I should take a screenshot right now because, Sean, there's razor wire above your head. It's a crime.
I know, I look like I'm sitting in a prison yard. It's a concrete
wall. It is a wee bit scary. Now, had I not known and met you a while back and seen you in the varying types of environs, including your home office, thank you. Well, it's still a wee bit off. Sean's in Guatemala.
He's at the El Chapo.
There you go. He's in the El Chapo. Oh dear.
Is that a better scene?
It was a bit disconcerting, I admit. All right, let's let Matt in. He can get us under control here.
Hold on.
Any moment now. There he comes. Hi, Matt. Good morning, dear. How are you?
Your mic's off, Matt. I can't hear you.
No, I can hear you.
The ocean's coming. I don't know if it's the ocean.
Well, now I have muted Rocco because of that background. For me.
I am on Sunday. Speaking of persistence, I took a hike in the Adirondacks. It was an 11-mile hike. We woke up at about 5:30 in the morning to start the hike at I don't know when we started. We probably started around 8 because we had to travel an hour to get to the hike. And it was much longer than we anticipated. So we got about halfway into it and we thought, we probably only have like a mile, 2 miles left. We still had 5 miles left to walk. Mm-hmm. And you got to think about the Adirondacks. You have ascents onto the hills and then descents. So we ended up hiking for 9.5 hours.
Well, there's a plan that went awry.
That's hardcore.
Absolutely. Like I was thinking about some of these weaknesses. I could have like blamed. My dad was like, "Are you guys like mad at me for this? Because we're still hiking, and it was like getting dark. We like have to get this hike over with. Like we have to finish this tonight because we can't let it get too dark." And I wasn't mad at him. I felt some resistance because of how unexpected it was and how we underestimated how long the hike would take. But I was thinking about some of the weaknesses here. Maybe like the idea of adapting the plan and not blaming other people for the fear of criticism.
Mm-hmm.
So that was what happened. So now I'm quite, my heels and thighs and calves are quite sore. But
I imagine they are. But you have persistence. Okay, Rocco.
Yep.
Okay, Rocco. Thank you for joining us.
Much love. Y'all have a beautiful day.
Thank you.
Rocco, she does it every day, weekday at this time.
Yeah.
I like your cat. Okay.
Yeah.
Every day at this time. Okay. Charlene, thank you for sharing your light.
Oh, thank you, Rocco.
All right.
So, Matt,
Thanks, Rocco.
it's persistence is what gets us through. See, this is what you just described is that persistence gets us through in spite of the speed bumps or the walls that are placed in front of us, because you had a definite goal in mind. You had a definite plan to reach the goal. You had allowed yourself no excuses to stop.
yeah.
You know? I mean, because you could have had the excuse, right? I've seen people do it. It's amazing what lengths people go to justify an excuse. Or you plop your ass down and say, I'm not moving. And then, or that you replace the wishfulness to willingness to do what was necessary to reach the end of the hike, right? Instead of plopping down and just giving up and saying, I wish, you know? So,
and I think at that point, with the resources of water that we have and the fact that we were on an 11-mile trail, 8 miles into the trail, we really couldn't decide to turn back, because then it would take longer
point of
to
no
get
return.
back to the beginning than it would to the end. So it was kind of dicey, and there were some really narrow, steep paths with rocks and everything you could possibly think of. And it's just,
so you had quite an adventure then. It was more than a hike. That was more than a hike.
That's
Yeah,
a
it sounds like
a real Adirondack mountain hike, and we completely underestimated the length of time it would take. But we got great pictures and everything, and we made it through. So that's the benefit of that.
Yeah, and you know, Charlene, you said something
yeah, if
about
wishes were horses, we'd all have a ride. Sorry. That's fine.
And I was thinking, because you know, he highlighted in the reading today about wishes, and the one that came to mind is if wishes were fishes, we could end world hunger.
Wishing instead of willing.
Yeah, I'm gonna go back to being in a chicken coop. I can sit in a chicken coop and wish I was a chicken all day long. It's not gonna make me a chicken. But if I'm willing to do some things, I can become a chicken. And in the context of today's reading, the willingness to go out and to work a little bit to get a little money so that I can purchase a quality chicken suit, and then to find an appropriate place for me to change and get in that chicken suit, then I can sit in the chicken coop and call myself a chicken. But I have to have the willingness to do the things to get what I want, right? That's
and pay for the egg and pay
pay for the signage that says eggs available for this much money. You know, I mean, that could be a way to make the money to get the chicken suit, right?
Like spin the sign out in front for people in the chicken suit, so they come, so they drive in.
Sure.
And then I like the other part too. That says,
you know, the market. Okay, so the market army's going off now. We could have eggs laid fresh daily. Get yours now. Me in a chicken suit. You know.
Most ideas are stillborn and need the breath of life injected into them through definite plans.
Is that not a beautiful statement?
A lot of it is, yeah. A lot of it's just starting. I mean, persistence will keep you going, but you have to have the ability to start out like
what it went into, right? Fear of criticism is what stops us from starting. You think?
Yeah, absolutely.
Welcome. Good to see you.
Good morning. Good morning, man. Good morning.
Good morning, Miss Ha.
Okay, if you leave it up to me, I'm a party crasher. So
yes,
let me
you are.
talk about this.
That's why I'm glad you're here. Get us on track.
To most of us, and especially what you shared this morning, Charlene, and all of us, we don't have to wait until death knock on our door, and then we beginning to really to remind us to live fully and die empty, because something that we need to do. That the procrastinations is that no place for that, because if you want to do something, you want to make anything significant, start today. And in the number 6 that he talking about the satisfaction or something, I remind people go to read a book called Good to Great, because when you start to complacent, you satisfied with where you are, you have no drive to do any better. And doesn't matter how old you are, 60, 50, or 102 at my age right now. If you don't take the responsibility on yourself, your own actions, and you still a little girl or a little boy, you will graduate from the childhood to the adulthood by taking the responsibility on your own actions.
Yep.
And he talked about people seeking for the shortcut, which also remind me of Zig Ziglar. He in the book called "See You at the Top," and he said that the road to success. The elevator is broken. You have to take the stair.
Yep.
Going to have to work a little bit for.
Yes,
like
and then people.
You have to take an 11 mile hike.
People said that you hop into the elevator and you hit the 21st floor, and then take you there. And I think that that's
the stairs are made of rocks and twigs and wet stone. All right, I have to head out. But thank you.
Okay, Matt. Thank you for being here. Always a pleasure.
All right, Matt. Thanks for stopping in and sharing.
Yeah, and then the more I read the book, and I read, I don't know, maybe a dozen times, and every time I read it, and I see something different. And now, because with the blab and with the platform that you offer to us, everybody come in, have their own take about the lessons, and I gain so many different perspectives. Yes, very powerful, Sean, and I love it, and to me is that come closer to home, and I still shook up. I don't care how old he was or she was, but because please do not wait until death knock onto your door, and to remind you to live fully and die empty.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I was just going back as you were talking, Han. I was looking back at the last paragraph you read, Charlene, and it said if you stop the first 100 people you meet and ask them, that was a powerful. 98 won't be able to tell you what they want,
but if you press them,
and if you press them, you'll get some surface level answers. And that loops back to what we've been talking about all along. Is have a plan. Where do you want it? You got to have a map, and you got to know where you're going, where you want to get, and then you can work on getting started and plotting your course with the flexibility to maneuver around the obstacles that you might. Matthew's illustration of the hike is like a perfect example. When we embark on this journey towards our success, towards our dreams, we don't know how long the hike is. We think, it's just a little further, and it's not until we get further along we're like, okay, wow, it's a lot further than I thought. and there's thin trails, and there's yes, there's beautiful vistas along the way, but there's going to be obstacles, there's going to be tiredness, but having our plan and our purpose, and not focusing on the wishes, and I wish we were done already, I wish we could go home, I wish but that gives us that persistence to continue the journey.
Keep moving in spite of.
And I really see success as, and this is a bit trite, but success is not a destination, it's a journey. And it's, I'm really learning in my NLP classes is, are you living in cause or are you living in effect? If you're living in effect, those are the people that are blaming it on family members or situation or where you live or any number of other excuses why you don't have
there you go excuses
has. I and then cause says I don't have it, and so I'm going to do what it takes to get it because I want it.
Sean, I want to revisit to your first statement. And Charlene, I agree with you guys that sometimes people, they don't know what they want. And then sometimes is they cannot, because their vision is not too clear, so they cannot articulate their vision to you. However, there are also some people just like Napoleon Hill said that when Carnegie offered him a black book with all the success people, and he afraid to tell people because people think that you are crazy, invested your 20
Nobody's
years.
done this before. What are you doing?
Yes, and some people they just don't have the conviction to their dream or their journey, and they're afraid to say it because they're afraid that you will laugh at them. And those people have not met us yet, because if they know that we are the people have not
we need to get them in here, don't we? We just need to get them in here. Between me, Ha, and Sean, and the rest of you in the comment section, we'll help you believe and move forward, won't we?
Yeah, the people with a small mind will laugh at your big dreams, and to us, we understand, if you put your mind to it, we will get there, and we will encouraging them. And I think that some people are, don't have the conviction to their dream. I
think you're right. And I think that part of it is that they have the conviction, but get tired. When you're surrounded by naysayers and all you hear is the negative, it can be the anchor that suddenly, or as Reverend Noreen is saying, you get derailed. And it's you believe in yourself, but when nobody else believes in you, I got to tell you, when I see people who are able to have that belief and conviction in spite of the circumstances, I'm blown away. Because I need, one of the things I recognized in myself, I need to have people around me. I need to hear that feedback from others that it's okay. That, even though I get the negative feedback from some, I get that pushback that you're nuts. I don't understand why you're doing that. I have this circle around me that says, we believe in you. It's not that they have to believe in my vision. They believe in me. And so that gives me the strength to push back against the negative. I need that. And that was something I recognized in myself as a business owner as I have grown. And as we all know, that the best self-development course ever is to own your own business. So I want to put that out there because anybody who's struggling with all they're hearing is that negative feedback. That positive isn't coming through. That support isn't coming through. They're not feeling it. They're focusing on all that criticism, is that you can shift that. As Sean says, there can be a mind shift towards the focusing on the positive. And it takes some effort. If you want it, there's a way to do it. There's multiple ways to do it. One of those is to participate in something like this, where you're hearing other people talk about moving forward and getting through the big stuff, crawling over the wall, finding ways through, because we're persistent and we have a vision and we know what we're going for. Okay, Han, come on up.
I have the conflict on that because I want to, I protect my dream at all costs. But again, in the same token, I want to say it out loud because I want to leveraging that. Because if people ever stare at me and say that you crazy or that's impossible, because I want to show them how wrong they are. So that's something that I feel very funny about that, because I want to tell the world, because then I want to hold myself into it. But like the author mentioned that show them, don't tell them.
There you go. Smart Coos.
Good morning, Charlene. How are you?
Doing okay. How are you today?
I'm doing pretty well.
Good. Is there a name you'd like us to call you, or do you want to be
give your real name, right? Mirta.
Mirta. Nice to meet you. Do you have any input or something you'd like to make a comment on regarding persistence or fear of criticism, or that which we read, which were all the symptoms of lack of persistence?
Yes, I do. But in the sense that I feel like, in order to understand where I'm coming from, my background briefly is my parents are from the Caribbeans, and I'm going to briefly generalize. But it's in the sense that when it comes to criticism, it's right now I have a child, so I have to think of it from my childhood's perspective and what I want to give off to my child. When it comes to criticism, I feel like that's sort of like the environment that I grew up in. So I can honestly say to this day, I'm not really good at taking compliments, in the sense that it's if you come up with an A- in my family, that's not really a time for joy or happiness. Right?
Yeah, that's not a good thing.
More of a,
you should have worked a little harder.
You should have worked a little harder. Like, why are we celebrating an A- or an A? And that takes you somewhere else. Whereas, and I understand not giving a person like false support, but at the same time, you also want that positive support to kick in. So I want to say, because of that, maybe in part because of that, I'm not quite sure, but I'm not sure how detrimental it was, but I also know that I didn't want my child to grow up in the same environment, because I have a very strong type A personality, which is it has to be done. I will get it done. But at the same time, I want my child to grow up in a home that's reinforcing the positive of what they're doing, and that's not always negative. Because at the same time, whereas I think I have done okay for myself, my sister, and once again, I'm not sure if that home environment was the reason, but my sister, I think it's something we should talk about, but she committed suicide at the age of 18. And that's something that we grew up in the same home, same environment, but we had two very different personalities and how we function. Whereas me, I could be, I think brush it off or move on. My sister has a different mindset, and there are other factors playing into it. But I think criticism is just something that, when it's provided, it can be positive if it's constructive. But at the same time, it does tend to beat up on someone's morale if it's consistently a negative feedback.
So, taking that, which is some great nuggets there. Take that, now let's put it into who we are, and how can I prevent that type of critical thinking about me, critical, not constructive, but those who want to tear me down, anchor me down, stop me from moving forward. And what Napoleon Hill is saying, that I can do that by being very strong with my desire, with my plan, with my willingness to be persistent to get it, and all the other things that come into play. Okay, so that's great writing.
Yeah.
Now, how do we have that as our mindset so that we're no longer afraid of criticism? Meaning, and even as I'm saying this, I'm realizing giving credence to your criticism of me. So if you tell me you think I'm bonkers for doing this morning mindset cafe, which you could, you say this is the silliest thing I've ever seen, and pop off and then tell me about it later, I can honestly come back and say, that's interesting you think that, but I've got, today alone, I've got 45 people that disagree with you. And every day I've been doing this, I have a minimum of 20 to 25 that stay either in live stream or comment. So that's the inner circle that supports what I'm doing. There's the evidence that is a part that I can get into my mind. What if you don't have the evidence? What if you don't have that? So again, just throwing it out for discussion that what Napoleon Hill's trying to teach us, I'm not one to have been able to do it on my own. So I'm just throwing it out. What if you don't have that evidence? Those are the ones that I'm blown away by, people that don't have the evidence and yet they still move forward with it.
Yeah, I think that's pretty interesting because I don't, one of the quotes that I read recently, it's the absence of evidence isn't evidence of absence itself, right? So if you think about it in that sense, then because you have to start from somewhere, right? You have to start from somewhere. Otherwise, you won't do anything at all, period. And the fact that, let's say you did start your room and there was no one here for the first 2, 3, 4, 5 days, that
I wouldn't have done it.
Inherently that you're on the wrong. Right?
I got to tell you, I wouldn't have done it. Sean was here when I first started. I was very anxious when I first started this. I was, oh my God, nobody's going to show up. All right, if they don't, that's okay. I'm giving it a try. We're going to see what happens. And yeah, it was a little nerve-wracking. It wasn't life or death, thank goodness, but it was nerve-wracking. I needed the evidence that it was worth pursuing. Well, now, and we'll put this in a little different context too. I mean, the reason that I did this was very, very selfish originally, and it was because I wasn't getting much out of my morning readings. I was just reading and reading, I wasn't seeing a lot of changes happening in myself. Things weren't sticking with me and what have you. And I thought, well, if I put it out here, maybe I can get other people talking about it. All right, I'll learn and I'll be better for it. So it was very selfish in the beginning. So I thank everybody for allowing me to be selfish and enjoying my selfishness and supporting me being selfish. But it's changed, of course. I shouldn't say of course. For me, it's changed. That now I'm helping others to see things a little differently. I'm, of course, continuing to see things differently because of what you're bringing to the table and sharing in your own experiences, and I'm growing because of it. So while it's still selfish on that side, it really is all about me. That's why I'm here. It's all about you because that's why you're here. So just wanted to throw that one out there.
Someone have said to me one time that when you give light, shed that light, and then you help people find a way, but in turn you will, shine the light on your way as well. So, in the, the selfish way, you said, that when you give in the selfish way that you want to feel good about what you give to people or what you have offered to people. And I will tell you that I grew up in the culture just like you talking about, you have to do your best and expect the best, and you have to be number one because they will tell you that number one will be remembered, number two, not too many people remember you. For instance, if you're asking about who is the president of this country, they can tell you, but there's not too many people remember who is the vice president. That's the way we think. And, I came to this country a few years ago, but let me tell you, I embrace this culture because this is the culture of people empower each other. If you find the right group, and, the minds like the people, you will see the support. But, just like any place else, you have all kinds of people. Some people will put you down. Some people will lift you up. But avoid all that. If you can lift somebody up, then do it. And because you will find somebody who will lift you up.
So there was a question posed by Eric about I'm sorry, I've already messed up.
It's okay.
Mirta. I was going to say Myrta. I was close. Mirta. So what do you think was the key difference, if you have a thought about it, in those personalities between you and your sister? I don't know that it's that much as I like the second part, which is, what do you see as the difference that you felt was in your control? Because you said you were able to deflect a lot of the external critiquing, and while it sounds like your sister tended to internalize.
And I think, and Eric, just to answer it clearly, and I think Charlene, you kind of hit it on the head. And this happened back in 2004. So it's been a decade that I've had time, over a decade, that I've had time to think about it. So, and I think about it a lot at the most unexpected times. And I think that goes for anybody who's had someone who's ever committed suicide in their life, period. You wonder, what could you have done different? What did you do wrong? Maybe if I had picked up that phone call, maybe if I had sent another note, you just have the what if moments, right? So I want to say, since we were kids, one of the things that very much, and wow, okay, 7:56 my time, and I might start crying early in the morning. Don't like that. All right, but one of the things that I noticed when we were kids, so I'll give you a brief background. I came to the States when I was 7 years old, and my sister was already in the States, so she grew up in the States with my mom. So when I came, so basically at 7, that's when I knew who my mom was. She raised me for the first year of my life, but I don't have any real memories of that time. So when I came to the States at 7, that's who I knew: my mom, my dad, my family. Before that, my extended family raised me. So when I came to the States, it was my sister and I and my younger brother. And during that time, it was, I could tell my sister so much felt threatened in the sense that, hey, someone new is in the house. And at first she was mommy's little girl. And this time it was like, well, this is going to be mommy's little girl. But the problem was, for some reason, I was okay not being mommy's little girl, because at the age of 7, I don't know, I have this fear about, by the time kids are 6, they have a sense of whatever. But it was like, it's my mother. I knew that logically speaking, but that urge to please her for whatever reason didn't exist for me. It wasn't a, make mom proud moment. It was, I just didn't have that thing that I think I should have. And she had it. And she was everything I wasn't, by the way. She was sweet. She was nice. She was very loving. She was like the huggy-dovey person. Whereas I'm like, get away from me. I don't want to be hugged. And I don't,
don't touch me. Yep, that's me.
Yes,
don't touch me.
Very much. I was like, she was, yes, for everything I was, I think she was like so much better in terms of, she was affectionate. She was just all these things that for whatever reason.
Very, very different.
Yeah, I feel like I was lacking in those elements. And most importantly, I felt like I had been ripped away from my environment, and you're throwing me in this environment. And now we need this sense of, it was a lot more. And there's so many levels there, Eric, that I don't think I can cover this morning, and also not cry at the same time. And I don't want to cry. So, but I think the things that were within my control, even from a really early age, is the fact that and I don't know how much control it was, as it was like, listen, I was not into this environment. I didn't want to be, I was enjoying in my life in that country that I was in. And by the way, me coming here was the best decision that the grown-ups made. It really was. But at that time, I didn't appreciate it at all. But for me, it was like, I knew I've always been very single-minded and very focused. Like, number one, there's no way on earth I'm going to stay in Florida. Like, I hated that state. Like, there's no other. And that's just a kid's mentality. And it wasn't the state that I hated. I just didn't like my experience at that time. I came here as an immigrant. I couldn't speak the language well. I had an accent. All of those little things kicked in. And I was very persistent towards my dream. At like 14 years old, I talked my way into a job at a restaurant, and so I could save money for college, because I knew we didn't have the finances. And I was still going to school, and those things were just we were very different. Whereas my sister, for her, and I want to say our family isn't that affectionate, lovey-dovey type. When I say our family, but the thing is, she needed that. She needed those hugs, like for me with my daughter, I give her morning hugs daily. I give her those little things daily. And it's just one of those things I feel like, hey, I should do it. Like, and I tried to reinforce those things. But at that time, I don't think she got that. And I don't think she got that from me. She didn't get that from, she needed this kind of love and support in that cushion environment, where in one environment I would thrive, in that same environment somebody would not. I feel like that's the environment we were in. And that was just a big difference. And Eric, I didn't answer your question, but I don't want to like hijack Charlene's show to talk about my.
Those are some excellent points, Mirta. Those are some excellent points. This is what I've pulled out of. I'll be shutting this down on the recording shortly for those watching the replay, but I want to make sure I heard this correctly. Is that simply that you responded well to the environment that you were in? Whatever the details are, is that the environment you grew up in suited you. You suited your personality, it suited your innate talents, your skills, your desire, how you viewed the world, your perspective, and what have you. Whereas somebody else needed a different environment to grow and to the basic needs.
Yeah.
I mean, I can point to myself in very similar situation, in that the environment did not suit Charlene doing really well. And what I mean by that is not that my close family, mom, dad, brothers, weren't who they needed to be for me. That wasn't it. It was that we constantly moved, and I don't respond well to change. And the constant 18 months to 2 years, a new house, a new set of people to meet, a new school to start over in. It caused me, I shut down. That was not conducive to my growing. I went the opposite way. I can look at a brother, baby brother, and basically point to him and say, that's what I would have been if I could have had that ability to grow in the environment that he grew up in, which is very similar, of course, to mine. But he viewed it very differently. He had, again, the innate, whoever he is, he responded positively to it. That's what I'm hearing. Am I way off on that?
No, and I think you're on the right track. I do think all kids respond to that love and affection. And I think I probably would have appreciated that extra hug or two. But I just want to say, I guess for me, I didn't care, or maybe I just made myself believe I didn't care. I don't know, either one, right? Whatever I needed to protect myself in order to get to where I needed to be. And I think I didn't think you're very much on that right track. Because I won't say like her, she really needed those hugs. I would have really liked those hugs too. I really would. But my whole thing is, it's like, okay, listen. Clearly,
but the reality hit you that said, clearly, I'm not going to get these.
It's not gonna, yeah.
Whereas I couldn't even articulate
and
what was missing for me. Yeah.
Me and my mom, we get along really well now. But
yeah, that happens a lot when we grow up. Okay, so I need to shut down the recording. I can keep the room open for 45 minutes to an hour. If anybody wants to continue the discussion of what we're on now, of that which we read regarding persistence with Napoleon Hill, the symptoms of lack of persistence, and what can we do to apply it to ourselves so that we no longer have those symptoms. So for now, though, I am going to shut down the recording and thank everybody who's joined me on the live stream. Thank everybody who has commented and participated in the discussion this morning. I greatly appreciate you being here. And for those watching the replay, thank you for watching. This is Charlene Burke with Grow Because You Know. That's www.growbecauseyouknow.com. Let's move forward with the day on purpose, with purpose, to grow our hearts, grow our minds, grow our businesses. Until